Hello and welcome to Become the Teapot. I'm Iain.
And so am I. This is the podcast where we compare comic books to their on-screen counterparts in an ongoing effort to get my friend to read more comics. And this month, all month, is X month.
Or to be more precise, Ryanuary.
Right, let's do this. Iain!
Hello.
Hello. So, Deadpool, it has been well documented on this podcast, is one of your favourite characters, I believe.
Indeed.
So, I take it you enjoyed the film. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I love it. I loved it when I first saw it. Love it now. It's a 100% improvement of Origins.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, he can talk, so that's good.
It's a bonus.
He's got a mouth.
He does. And he runs it constantly.
This is, I think, Fox throwing everything they've got at the wall to be like, I'm so sorry what we did. This is what we can do. But I believe that Ryan Reynolds is the character.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not taken out of the film thinking, well, that's just Tom Cruise playing Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Yes, you can make an argument it's Ryan playing himself, but with a character like this, it works so well.
Yeah, I think this is it. I mean, Ryan Reynolds came about in 90s comedies, and Deadpool came about from 90s comedies, is very much based on that sort of sensibility. So Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds, which he so often does, is very similar to what Deadpool should be.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a joke in the comics, not one we read, but it's, you know, I look like Ryan Reynolds crossed with a Shar-Pei. So, yeah, I mean, it's always been referenced that he is a bit like Ryan Reynolds or a sort of 90s wisecracking comedy character.
Well, he does make a joke in this that it looks like he got bit by a radioactive Shar-Pei.
Yeah.
So that joke is in there, but you might not pick up on that unless you've seen that particular comic panel.
Yeah, so they sort of reused that joke, although they still also had references to Ryan Reynolds in here, which I thought was, again, that sort of fourth wall breaking.
Yeah.
And that's something that became more and more prevalent. You notice in the comics we read, there's a couple of instances of it, but it definitely is something that becomes more and more prevalent for the character as time went on. I completely agree, though. It seems that they are trying to atone for Origins and give the people what they want. I think that, you know, by this point they had been sort of screwing up the franchise for long enough. They realised that if you just went a bit more comic accurate, I think obviously the MCU was in full flow at this point, and they realised you could do colourful characters and things like that. And what's even more bold is obviously they go R-rated with it, you know.
Yeah.
18 in this country, I believe it was. May have been a 15. I think that was especially bold, considering the comic isn't actually... People are saying, oh, it has to be R-rated. Well, the comic isn't, but okay.
Well, that's something that I was going to actually ask you this towards the end, but I'll chuck it in now.
Okay.
Now that obviously Fox has been bought out by Disney, so now the MCU own this character.
They do indeed.
They will probably have to recast the majority of the X-Men. But with Deadpool, do you reckon they should recast or bring him in as is, or water him down to be still R-rated, but in a comical way where he swears, but it beeps? That kind of joke, if you know what I mean.
I can see them continuing to allow him to be R-rated in his own films. So Deadpool 3 could be R-rated, but almost certainly when he appears in other things, he won't be.
Yeah.
You know, so if he crops up in the Avengers or whatever it is, he's not going to be R-rated, is he? So I can see that being the sort of compromise. But as I say, in the comics, it works just like that as well. You know, he doesn't swear really in the comic books. If they do, they put the asterisks and whatever else in there instead of it. So I think that more than likely he will be allowed to be an R-rated for his trilogy, but any other appearances will perhaps be toned down in terms of the violence and gore. And I think what you might have is that you have it in this film to a certain extent is when Colossus reacts to him breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And Colossus is sort of like, well, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? You know, that sort of...
But it's just a comment and that's it gone.
Yeah, exactly. You could easily do that. That is what the comics been doing for years. Deadpool crops up, and this is what my concern might be slightly, is that he turns into the wacky comedy character who turns up and just makes a few wisecracks and then goes away again.
Yeah.
He needs a bit of pathos to him in order to be a compelling character, otherwise he's just a comic relief.
Yeah, which isn't always your favourite, is it?
I don't, you know, comic relief is very important for films. That's not a problem. But if it's going to be the main character, there has to be something else there. Otherwise, it's just make a comedy.
Yeah. I think you may have brought this up on the podcast. Something that I don't quite like, but it works with the film, is how cartoony they've made Colossus.
Yeah.
And this is the part that I think you may have brought up before, is that he's just sat in the X mansion in his silver kind of form watching TV.
Yeah.
And you're going to think, would he have done that? Would the character have done that? Really? Probably not.
No, yeah. They sort of, like they say, I think the opening credits, a CGI character.
Yeah.
And that is all he is, because they don't actually have a human actor for that role. And we'll see in the in the sequel, when they do a CGI character that does have flesh, that it doesn't look quite real, which we'll discuss next episode. But yeah, so I get why they did that, but I agree with you. It is a little bit strange that he's just sort of this big cartoon figure. But he is a more accurate representation of Colossus, perhaps, than the ones we've seen in the past.
Yeah, he's appeared in X2 and 3.
X2 and 3, I think he was in Days of Future Past as well. But he is very much a superpower with a man attached in those films. He is not actually a character. He is a man who can turn into metal, and that is it.
Yeah. Although I do find it quite funny that he hates bad language more than Captain America.
What the shit?
Well, they've played it up a little bit, his little humble origins, but he is sort of a gentle giant. He's an artist. He's meant to be this big, huge guy with a poet's soul and an artist's eye and things like that. So I like that they've played that up a little bit in this, but they've taken it to the nth degree with, him. I would prefer not to hit women and things like that. But I like that sort of cartooniness, and I like those little in jokes as well about, can we not afford any other X-Men? Yeah. It's strange that a big house like this has only got the two of them.